Hey guys, welcome back to Skin Anarchy. I am so excited about our interview today because we are hosting somebody that I really admire for his work in the beauty space. I've been following his work for a long time. Now he has this beautiful brand that all of us have fell in love with. So without further ado, please welcome Patrick Starrr. Welcome, Patrick. I'm so honored to host
Hi.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I was just mentioning, as an influencer, I come from the era where we were pigeonholed into a corner of, I guess, entertainment that wasn't taken as serious. So to be on this podcast is like really such an honor for me. And you never think that you'll learn, but I'm always position myself as a student always. So thank you for having me. So like this is like the business tea, I guess. So I had launched one size in I had started working on one size in 2019 and we launched one size in 2020 and it was the craziest of times to launch a business. And what I didn't realize from coming from being an influencer to being a founder, I would slowly become exempt from the influencer endorsements and the influencer opportunities being with other brands. And I kind of start to feel the tides turn because I'm an older influencer. I'm an OG, as some would say. And so I started to feel this sense of exemption from being partnered with other brands just because my brand started to grow really fast. And so I said, oh my gosh, I'm not getting invited on these brand trips. I'm not getting the new products in PR. But for some reason in me, I want to feel this continued education in the beauty space. And being an influencer allowed that for me. Being an influencer allowed me to understand newness, to understand trends, to understand innovation. And I said, well, where can I kind of get that? And I remember it was 2023. I have had the brand by, for 2 years now. And it was the beginning of 23. And I was like, you know what? I see skincare becoming a trend, and I had struggled with acne myself. So you can see in the brand, I started with a lot of like blurring products and texture products. We have Secure the Blur, our primer, and then our ultimate setting powder to blur the skin. So it came from a place of problem meets solution, and I realized the trends in beauty where brands started to come out with like trendy names, back like maybe 10 years ago. It was a lot of trendy, kitschy names with the branding. Then it came with performance type of names like pro longwear or longwear this. Now we're coming into a trend since the 2020s with efficacious first type of names. And I was like, well, where does efficacy come from? And that comes from like skincare. So I realized that there was a lot of trends with like acids and actives. And I was like, there has to be a way to kind of understand this a little bit deeper. And I saw the rise of skinfluencers. And I was like, I don't know. And then you see the rise of celebrity skincare brands. And I'm like, I don't know. You know who I would trust? I would trust it either a doctor or a licensed esthetician. And I had been a fan of estheticians and getting treatments and facials myself. So I said, you know what? Maybe there's a world where I can become one. So that's like my long answer, like being excluded from the beauty community, being a beauty influencer, plus like wanting to learn more, seeing the trends of efficacy being first that kind of tickled my brain. If I actually learn the skin, the layers of the skin, the way that the skin being our largest organ. So I signed up for esthetician school. I went to night school in 2023. So I would do one size from like maybe like 9 to 4. And then I would take an hour break and I would go to school Monday through Friday from 5 to 10 at the Academy of Beauty in Culver City. So I loved it. It changed my life. When it comes to inclusivity, I think of the word acceptance. It's not to let people in, it's just to let people show who you are. In our packaging, there's like a lot of like red reflex and what we call vac metal, but this is actually symbolism in the brand. Is It's adorned in red and pink, so you see the idea of love every day. I choose to invest in our packaging to be metal so that way you can see yourself in the brand. You can see yourself in love. Also with our packaging, my logo, let me pull it out for you. The logo here, it's like this bubble OS.
Yeah,
When
I
I
love
was designing it, I was like, you know what? For as long as this brand lives, I want the design to be in my silhouette. So I asked my design team when I launched or was developing the brand to come up with something chubby,
yeah.
fierce, and gay. And so they had this like plump type of plus size logo that is kind of like our primary logo with our box logo in the one size. And so I'm like, you know what? For as long as I'm here, it'll be in the silhouette of me. And also, they get to see themselves in the love. And so, those are like subliminal, I think, design choices that I was able to come up with to highlight this idea of acceptance, quite literally in our packaging. And so, when we start there, we're able to then have a foundation of this message of what it means to be inclusive in all types of way through product. And I believe as a founder and as an entrepreneur, I love personification. So if I'm able to personify my product, then that is the way that I've been able to champion inclusivity and acceptance through the brand. I think for me, I had to take an introspective look at myself and say okay, how have I gotten this far with being online for 10 plus years at that time? And now it's like 13 years being online. And it's through the idea of communication. I remember Michaela had came over to drop off her PR for her collaboration for Glamlight, and she says, "I have a question." Well, she came and dropped it off outside my old place, and she's like, "Can I use the restroom?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she used the restroom, and she said, "I have a question. Has social media changed in this whole time?" And you know what I said? I said no. And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "No, because it's always communication. Communication has been the baseline of every single type of platform and application and institution that has come out in the years. Whether it's, Noah's Ark and there's a dove, or it's, the telephone or mail, email, paper pen, communication is at the forefront always. So that's where I started. I said, how can I communicate similar to like the way I've been able to speak to beauty through YouTube, through over 400 million views on YouTube, now through millions of views on social media. I said, it's communicate. So if you think about like our names, like I said, let's secure the blur, let's secure the glow, let's secure the sweat, let's turn up the bass. That's our franchise name. And people were like, how does it sound like that? And I was like, if I was to just explain it in kind of like a tutorial way, I can do the same through highlighting efficacy and creating marketing funnels that are actually truthful and honest to the best of my abilities, and layering that with social media, layering that with influencer marketing became such a vibe, and became such, a way of speaking to beauty that guided us in the way that we were able to come up with these formulas. We were able to look at competitive, we were able to look at innovation, raw materials, with my product development team, visit different labs and manufacturers just to challenge them on different types of innovation and what that meant to us. So I think when you think about how am I going to speak to this, because half the time when a new buzzword ingredient comes out, you can't even pronounce it.
Yeah.
But in the way that I'm able to, highlight the the definition of these buzzword ingredients, that gives me more confidence to instill confidence in the consumer and also in the viewer to aspire to beauty a little bit more in their routine. It's through just relationship building. I think I wouldn't have the reputation that I had today with, influencers to consumers to viewers to even celebrities if it wasn't just being upfront and authentic and developing that relationship. The other day, I had just filmed with Kiki Palmer, and she was my first ever celebrity 9 years ago. And I was like, oh, she's not gonna remember me. And then she comes in and she's like, Patrick, what's going on? Congratulations. And I'm like, we filmed in 2016, and she filmed in my apartment and in my kitchen, and to see like how far the both of us have come in our own, entrepreneurial celebrity, right? It's really cool to see. And I don't think that would have been as I wouldn't have been as relevant for her in her eyes had I not had that relationship. So I think also too, with my YouTube and with social media, we're able to garner these relationships where we're kind of able to see how influencers present themselves and, uplift their own voice and their reputation too, because you can find anything on the internet nowadays. So I think it was really cool for me to kind of connect with these influencers, at events or through the DMs and kind of see how they speak to product and make sure that the way that, I'm investing in these influencers too is at value. And I love that me being on the founder side that I'm able to spread this, money around to make sure that I'm still investing in the very economy that I was able to come up in being the influencer economy too. And that just makes me feel so proud to highlight them, to support them, and to show them. You know what? I have an amazing team. I think one thing about me, if you really were to take a day in the life, like I have employees that are honest, that keep me grounded. And before I'm able to pick up my phone and vent about it, in a TikTok or a story, like I'm able to have my board members or my team to kind of, vent to. And I think just knowing like my core values, I've always had this idea of like a personal brand and to stick by it and not deter from it. So, I think it's all about putting yourself first and not putting other people, at risk. And I know that my brand as Patrick Starr was going to take me to bigger places. I didn't know at the time what it was going to be. And now looking at it, it's one size and more. It's becoming one of the fastest growing brands in Sephora. My face is everywhere right now with their Til Dawn SPF. I shot that campaign in my house, in my pool. And it's just crazy to see the people that I've been able to employ and give net new opportunities to because I know what that feels like. So I always not just think about like my reputation and what that means to me. I'm always thinking about the people that work with me, that are traveling the world with me for the first time. And going back to the influencers, you're never gonna get that first time Cinderella moment. And so if I can be a fairy gay mother, fairy godmother to these influencers, I'm so honored that I get to witness their first campaign and how they're able to react and then close out the day. And so even for my team, if I'm able to do that, I know I have more things to protect than just me and my identity. So I'm always thinking about my family, my brothers, the people that are with me. And so that allows me to stay grounded before putting myself and inserting myself into any drama. It's
Yeah.
it's not easy, but you just have to know like what's reality and like finding that balance between like living your life in real life and also living your life for the camera and the phone. Well, Until Dawn was such a game changer for me, and I also like have extreme like freckles and hyperpigmentation, and I'm 35 now, so I'm trying to keep the beauty, as much as I can, while also trying to protect my skin from like sun damage, as I am climbing to 40. But I think for me, SPF for sure. And I was like, how can we put it on top of makeup? Because even if you put it underneath and you have makeup on top, like you have to reapply. And there wasn't necessarily a product that I could think of. When I was spraying all types of different brands and sunscreens, my eyes would really, really sting and start watering. And on top of that, it wouldn't be as matte. So we went through so many iterations of different SPFs to make sure that we were able to still keep it in the category of Until Dawn to stay mattifying. And we found that magic number to be 28 and still be efficacious and to still be cleared through legally that we're able to call it sunscreen. And so that like once we had it, we even tried SPF 29, SPF 30. The more sunscreen products that we put in terms of level, it became instantly that kind of wet, greasy kind of a look. And we then disqualified ourselves and exempted ourselves from being in the Until Dawn mattifying category. And we're like, we can't call it Until Dawn. But I was like, I needed to be Until Dawn mattifying on top. And with a lot of testing and a lot of back and forth, SPF 28 was that magic number. That's why I think a lot of people are confused. Why not 30? Girl, try a 30 and come back
Yeah.
and ask me if your makeup is going to be matte. So it's
Yeah.
really cool that we were able. to challenge, the PD team and also our marketing team to make sure that comes through. But I'm really proud of what we've been able to build with the Til Dawn category. Til Dawn, the iconic waterproof setting spray, is the number one selling product in all Sephora. It's the fastest selling product, one every 7 seconds. It's waterproof. So I love just layering the both of these. So you can spray
Yeah.
this on, waterproof. This is water resistant, but you can definitely reapply it all day. I was at Universal Studios, last weekend, and I was just spraying and, all day, every day, and my makeup stayed on. So I love that we're able to extend that into SPF. I think that the biggest fear, I think for me, when you start to grow a portfolio of product or like a brand, is that when you come out with more products, you might step on your own toes and you might cannibalize certain products. So you have to really find out your POD, like what's your point of difference? What are your key differentiators that make them totally different? So because with influencers, you're able to have like collaborations, like different colors and different lipsticks. But, as a brand and you want to have a certain product be evergreen, you have to make sure that there is true innovation and efficacy and points of difference that don't infringe on even other brands. Otherwise, it's just another dupe. So I think for me, I had to really position like, hey, what is a product that I want to have? How can I make it super, super different? How can I even challenge Sephora to kind of understand what that means to us and have everybody on the same page? So you do a lot of like introspective work and dialogue with yourself to make sure that you're not being influenced. And there was a time where I think receiving PR as an influencer kind of like flooded my brain a little bit, and I was like, oh wait, I maybe I shouldn't look at PR for a month. That's why I'm so late on posting like collaborations or my friends' PR products or with other brands, because I have to protect that side of my brain. It's almost like being in the recording studio. I
Yeah.
have to have no lyrics, no music. I just need me, my soul, my thoughts, the writers in the room, so we can come up with something truly original relative to today and meeting the consumer where they are and making sure that it is super respectful to the way that they digest information. Because on social media, on average, we're probably scrolling through 500 or 1,000 TikToks a day, and it's overconsumption of the brain. So you want to have something different, but you want it still to be digestible, but you want it to be different, and you want to not step on your own toes because you might launch something that may look like another product you already launched or look like a product that someone else launched. So it's a lot of work. And, when we look at like a business, there are two types of currencies that mean a lot and that should be respected. That's your time and that's your money. And when I think about money, the minimum order of these quantities of products, they become such heavy investments. But also, I had to tell my team, you know what? The way that we use the word time is the same way that we use the word money. You invest money, you invest time, you take time, you take money, you spend time. We had to spend a lot of time before we spent a lot of money in order to invest in the right way and to feel proud of that. So, although it may seem like we're launching a lot of products, I'm already approaching the beginning of 2027, end of 2026 right now. And so I'm really proud that I'm able to have a baseline of communication, like how I mentioned in the past, to invest the time and the money appropriately. So that way I'm not, drowning in debt or drowning in regret. My one of my best friends, he told me, you're a design thinker. And so I had to look at that diagram. If anybody listening wants to look up design thinker, you might be a design thinker. And it looks like an infinity, and it starts with empathy, and then it goes into an idea, and then you test the idea, then you prototype the idea, and then you validate the idea, and then you see if it satisfies your empathy.
Okay.
So when I thought about me as a design thinker, it started from a feeling. So when I think about like a feeling towards a product, I'm like, hey, could this be waterproof? Could this be SPF? Let's test it. Let's try it. Let's prototype it. Let's validate it. Did it satisfy my needs? So when I think about like the consumers or the kids out there, I don't just think about satisfying their needs. I kind of recognize them where they are. It's not about product. It's like how do they personify with that? And I think being an entertainer slash influencer slash actor, I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, you kind of have to see with the consumer, what do they actually want that's beyond makeup? Do they want to feel a part of a group? Do they want to feel this idea of acceptance? Do they want to channel their creativity somewhere? Because there's a lot of millions of views and billions of views in the multi-billion dollar industry that we call beauty that people want to be a part of regardless of what that is. And some may want it for other reasons than just product. So I think, for me, through our idea of content, through our idea of entertainment, through the way that I'm able to conduct myself and speak to beauty, it's not just through product, but it's through identity. So I recognize it's almost like music. I was a classical pianist, when I was 10, and I studied at the University of Central Florida up until I was 16. So I look at makeup like music. Like, what do people actually want from it? And is it confidence? Is it just to channel things? Like we were coloring books, now we're coloring faces. So it is a huge responsibility, but the way that you're able to approach beauty is many different ways, as long as it satisfies or scratches an itch that you need, and whether that makes you feel confident, that makes you feel accepted into a group. Like, are these kids able to resonate with their peers in their space, in their age group? And so I recognize that beauty is just bigger than just the dollar, than just the industry, and it really means a lot more than meets the eye. I studied classical piano I started piano when I was 4, and then I studied classical piano when I was 10, and then I went to the university when I was 15, the UCF, for private study. And then I started my influencer journey at 22, 23. So when I approached makeup, and I was a piano teacher between 16 and 22.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had taught these young students 88 keys, black and white. And so I think I was able to teach makeup and deconstruct the idea of makeup or demystify what it meant to participate in beauty through my studies as a teacher. Put it on a medium and video allowed me to have like an edge where I can really teach, in my own way that made it fun, that made it aspirational, that made it consumable to these viewers. And so I still think I apply that today in my brain when building this brand. Uh, Building authentic relationships. Because if you look at, the millions of people that are on this earth and how these big cities and these big institutions came to be, it's through people. And so when you think about people, everybody has something to offer. And I get a lot of questions, and comments from aspiring influencers or budding entrepreneurs, like, how do I get started? Or how do I get viral? It's not about being viral. You have to look at the digital space and the algorithm almost like a room. When you walk into a room, the algorithm of the room is not just going to turn and give you that Cinderella moment. You have to go back into that room, meet some people, build relationships, and then when you leave and then you come back, you post another video, you come back, more people have gotten to know you. So when you leave and then you come back, it's not you've built. So you have to engage, you have to build a relationship. I think it's also building a relationship with yourself, because that's what will give you the most important point of difference is you, your identity, your authenticity, your individuality. And so once you're able to position that and stay true to who you are, eventually people will get to know you and what you independently have to offer. Now, when you apply that to business and you have this exercise tone of voice and this confidence and this point of difference, you're able to kind of have people agree to the same visions that you have. And where you say financial freedom, where does money come from? It comes from other people. So when I'm talking to my investors or my team, I say, we have to meet the people where they are. And I always tell them, in the words of the Little Mermaid, Ariel, I want to be where the people are.
Yeah.
Okay? So
Yeah.
you have to be literally a part of their world. And so when you're able to position that and say, "Oh, what can I offer? What's going to make me different than my competition or the same exact type of industry or business next to me?" Once you're able to kind of have that introspective conversation and that dialogue among yourself, you're going to say, "You know what? Hell yeah, I have something to offer." I'm confident. Then you start practicing that voice, and you'll eventually start to realize and kind of build, compound that confidence and build that. And you're gonna blink and you're gonna start building your clientele and start building your financial freedom. I think a word that's been in my brain personally and also for the business is like sustainability. What are you going to be able to do over a long period of time, and what are you going to enjoy doing? Because a lot of people can just throw themselves into one video or into one project or into one launch. But is it really sustainable for your mind, your soul, your body to do that over and over and over again?
Yeah.
So I get a lot of inspiration from like Beyonce and Lady Gaga and how they've been able to be in multiple genres of music, to have different genres of their eras, and it's admirable. And so I think like even me being having been in beauty for like I would say like 9 years at that time, and just beauty and just influencing, just social media, to then go into physically go into school and learn. It shook my world like totally crazy. I was reading the Milady books. I was doing 300 hours of operations. I was waxing armpits, waxing backs, and doing facials, and also building that. So you have to think about like hard work, like how is it going to be sustainable? How does it align to you? And also continuing to be a student too. Always learning. Like you can never learn too much. Like the world is moving so fast, digital is moving so fast. Even if it's just having a conversation with ChatGPT on different topics to help break it down, like utilize these innovations and these technologies to your advantage, or just have a conversation with a friend. I think you have to balance that psychology too, because your body is always going to want to have psychological safety with yourself. And I feel like with social media and digital being so much, I feel like I get this kind of like overwhelming sense of anxiety because I'm like, I have to do that, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do to awkward, I have to do this thing. And so you have to say, hey, what's going to work for me? And it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart. So for me, when I approach my content, I've come up with these systems for me that allow me to do 4 or 5 videos in one sitting that I just came up with like the other day. I called it this makeup matrix. And I have this context map that helps make sure that my tone, my takeaway for the audience is there. I'm gonna have it in my book one day. I'm working on it and testing
Oh,
it, but yeah, I've come up with this system, this social media matrix, this context map that allows me to stay true to me because this works for me. And I looked at it the other day and I was like, I think this could help millions of people and entrepreneurs create content and pursue, their own identity and be able to share it with the world. So I think, just doing what works for you and making sure that it's sustainable because you don't want to burn out. These kids, like when I'm meeting them at like 21, 22, they're like, I'm so tired. I'm tired. I'm like, girl, I'm
I
30
know.
freaking five. Like, y'all got a long way to go. We're working on a brand new launch in September. I will tease it as a complexion launch. It's exciting. And then next year, you'll start to see a little bit of my esthetician practices and ideologies come to life. So it's exciting. It's still beauty centric. It's straightforward, but without jumping in too fast and too far. I think just a product at a time, so that way I'm able to have a sustainable relationship with our fans and our consumers of One Size to understand my founder ideology and our brand ideology of what it means to be in beauty, whether that be makeup or skincare.
Well, I hope you come out with a skincare line. I'm just gonna say that right now. I can't. If you do, I can't wait.
Thank you
So,
so much. Thank you.
yeah.
It means more than you know, because I'm always questioning myself, doubting myself, and I always pray at night. I'm like, okay, like I hope I get to have a little bit of a sign, and whether that's meeting you or hearing from you, or meeting a fan, or seeing my window and my face in Sephora, it's just like these little, heavenly signs that remind me to continue doing what I'm doing. So I'm really, really honored and thankful that I had this conversation with you today. Thank you.